Let's speak now, though, to Baroness Ros Altman, crossbench peer, former pensions minister, of course, because not only is money at the very heart of many conversations at the top of government, it should be also very much at the top of many conversations about state pensions, about the benefits bill. We're talking about £100 billion now of benefits being paid out before the end of this decade to people on sickness benefits, which is simply just unaffordable. You know, the pension system is in a terrible state, as is welfare. Baroness Ross, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to talk to you. I mean,
lovely to be here.
Basically, we seem to have a great big horrible kind of, you know, I don't want to call it a sort of a boil that's about to burst, but you know, the idea for me is that, you know, the desecration of the welfare system in this country has been going on for so long that something is about to give, isn't it?
Well, a lot of people are saying that. Certainly the level of generosity of some of the benefits in this country, or the ease with which you can get them, is attracting people to come here from abroad, and also the fact that you can work without an ID card, for example, is another element of this. But as far as the actual state pension is concerned for British pensioners, it's one of the lowest in the developed world. So, you know, although it is a lot of money because it's a lot of people, we're talking 11, 12 million people, the actual amount of the basic new state pension, before you talk about all the extra benefits that go on top of that, is not terribly generous. And that's certainly an issue that a lot of people overlook. Nevertheless, of course, it's a large amount of money, and the government is trying to control spending by increasing the state pension age. My fear on that is that a lot of people aren't healthy enough to work until an ever-rising age, and there's big disparities between those who have had very hard physical manual labour lives, for example, and are seriously not well in their 60s or even in their late 50s. And then those who are at the top of the tree who have very healthy lives until at least their early 70s.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's not as much, I suppose, you know, sort of mechanical jobs or factory jobs or even, you know, what you might call blue-collar industrial jobs as there used to be. Yeah. But there are certainly jobs that you can't do for as long as other jobs, right?
Yeah, and also, of course, going forward, the idea that people should have had less physically demanding lives is true. But when you're dealing with the people who are already at pension age now or coming up to it, they have lived through those times when there were a preponderance of very heavy manual labour jobs in their early lives, which have taken their toll on their bodies and their health. So you've got to plan pension policy, not just for the next 40 years, but look at the cohorts of people coming through today.
Yes. And that would mean as well, looking at one of the stories we discovered just the other day about how many people between the ages of sort of 16 and 24 are not working and haven't really got any intention of working and are not really expecting to work. And there's now something like 1 million of them. And I mean, that just is not sustainable, because apart from anything else, pensioners will need them to be working in order to pay into the system for the pensioners who are, you know, 50 years older than them.
Well, I think it's no good for society at all if you've got huge numbers of people who don't work at all if they could do so. And you've also got people in, you know, the later stages of their lives, maybe the late 50s or 60s, who can't maybe work full-time but could work part-time. And there's a lot of age discrimination against them, so they can't find work either. And you know, whether it's the young people or those in the later stages of their lives, the labour market hasn't been working as well as it should. And certainly in terms of sickness benefits, there is a clear problem. It's much too easy to be signed off sick and sometimes never have another check again.
Right.
Whereas what you should be doing is having a proper system which says, okay, you may not be able to do some kinds of work. What kind of work can you do, rather than the fact that maybe you can't do other types, therefore you're written off? Because we shouldn't write people off from the labour market. It's not good for them. It's certainly not good for the economy, and it's not good for the long-term future of society either.
No. I mean, I've spoken to GPs who admit that they will happily sign people off work just from an email that they've been sent, as opposed to actually even seeing them on video, or certainly, heaven forbid, actually seeing them in person, you know.
Well, if you're lucky enough to get an appointment these days.
Well,
yeah.
exactly right. I mean, and then there was another story this week which said that basically workers, low-paid workers, more than 1 million of them, are to be entitled to 80% of their weekly salary as statutory sick pay, which normally you don't get, I think, for the first 3 days. They're now saying that you'll be able to get that from day one, which is, again, going to put more pressure on firms, isn't it?
Well, employers are suffering so many blows at the moment. And I think there is this kind of idea suddenly at the top of policy that employers have a bottomless pit of money and they can always afford more, and that actually you've got this narrative that we need to look after working people. Well, hang on a minute, employers are working people. And they work their socks off to provide jobs for others. And of course, we need to be careful to make sure that we look after the low paid. And we need to be careful that we look after the future of the economy too, though, with
because I mean, all these people who are unemployed currently, or who are on various different welfare benefits, are not going to get job opportunities if there isn't any growth in the economy and employers don't feel confident enough to start hiring people.
That's my big worry with the recent national insurance rise on employers, which is adding hugely to the cost of employing part-time workers and also to the cost of employing low-paid workers.
Yeah.
And then we've got the employment rights issues that are coming through. Of course, workers deserve decent conditions. We don't want to go back to Victorian times of exploitation. But there are some areas in which I think we have gone too far. And, you know, at the end of the day, if we put so much pressure on employers, especially small firms, the big employers can often afford it, but the smaller employers, maybe those who are growing, companies that want to succeed in future, if we take away their ability to make profit, or we take away their ability to employ people more flexibly, and that's another important issue. You know, some of these new rules will make it more difficult to have flexible employment, then you are damaging the underlying growth potential. And the government's main aim, quite rightly, is to get us back on a growth track. So we have to be careful to balance all these things. And I'm not sure the government's quite got it right in its balance here.
No, I think that is very, very clear. Ros, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Baroness Ros Altman there, crossbench peer, former pensions minister as well.